And who police say is responsible for shooting 3 people, killing 2 over the weekend, faced an Alachua County judge today for the first time. TV 20's Ethan Badowski is live where the shooting happened. Ethan, what did the judge decide?
Dave, Judge Walter Green ordered Jazir Myers to be held without bond on 3 counts of first-degree homicide. Police say he shot 3 men around 2 a.m. Sunday. The shooting happened outside the Checkers on University Avenue and Northwest 9th Street in Gainesville. One of the victims survived and was able to identify Myers. He's expected to make a full recovery. Detectives showed Myers 2 surveillance photos of the shooter, and Myers admitted to being the person in the images. But when officers told him the person in the photo was the shooter, Myers told them he did not remember shooting anybody and claimed he may have been drugged. Some residents say gun violence is a growing issue.
I see it as a huge problem, and it's something that I would probably like to get involved with for us trying to, help solve the issue or educate people, especially young people. They can live a better life and a different life. And they need to think before they pull a gun.
2 of the victims were shot outside the Checkers, but a 3rd was shot in the head just down the street outside the Body Tech Tattooing and Piercing Shop. One of the victims who died was from Ocala. The other was a homeless man. Detectives say they believe all of the victims were chosen at random. They're still trying to figure out why Myers pulled the trigger. Live in Gainesville, Ethan Badowski, TV 20 News.